But we had left off on discussing this narration last time of Abu Dharr radiallahu anh, and we had talked about one of the ways of gaining humility and growing in humility is really learning and being humble, how to seek an apology from others. And we said that the best way to seek an apology from another is to ask them how you'd like me to apologize. And when we do that, it really it creates a vulnerable moment because we don't know what the other person is going to ask from us or what the other person is going to seek from us. So what if the situation is such is that, I hit someone and I go up to them and and I ask them, how would you like me to apologize? And they say, well, I want you to kiss my feet. Possible, yes? Okay, what do I do in that situation? Okay, ideally I don't do it, right? Or I'd be like, let me see the feet first. No, right? So ideally, you obviously that's not something that you should do. So what do I do? Okay, so I can be very honest with them. It's like, okay, I don't think I can do that. Is there something else that might work? And again, there's something that's really important, because when it comes to how to apologize, at that point, is there room to negotiate or not? All right, to an extent, right? If someone says like, hey, listen, I just need you to apologize, it's like, yeah, I don't think I could do that, right? That's not, you're not being fair, right? And that's actually a very reasonable request, and it's actually a very reasonable ask. But is there room to negotiate? Yes, there is room to negotiate. I will say that, okay, what does that look like? It looks like, at the least, verbalizing and expressing an apology, and now how to take steps beyond that. Like maybe if I took their money, maybe they'll ask for the money back. If I hurt them physically, like maybe they'll be like, okay, hey, no, I want to hit you just like you hit me, right? Like, and those things can happen, and those spaces do become places that can be negotiated. So this goes on. So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he alerted himself that he considered himself being superior. And this is the importance of having good company, right? When I'm around good people, immediately if I do something wrong or I make a mistake, or if they notice that I'm hurting someone or I'm expressing some type of arrogance, what are they going to do? Right, they're going to clock me, right? They're going to correct me in that moment and be like, hey, listen, yo, that was wrong. Like, that's unacceptable. How are you going to talk about this person or that person in the way that you did? That's not fair, that's not right. So it's really important to be around such people who can correct us, because those are the people who are actually going to help us grow, because they'll help us see things about ourselves that we don't necessarily see, and things don't always become as apparent. And the beautiful thing in this story, obviously, is not only did the Prophet ﷺ call out Abu Dharr himself, what did he do? He accepted immediately, right? And I think this is a really important point in learning how to pivot. And I think this is many times where we actually fail. We get stuck in how to take that the correctional step. That many times we'll hear to be like, oh, you were wrong. And the moment I feel grief, or the moment I feel remorse, what are the two pathways that end up in front of us? So if I do something and I recognize it's wrong, what are the two potential pathways that come from that? All right, so ideally, I pivot and I ask for forgiveness. It's like, okay, hey, I did something wrong. I'll do tawbah, I'll make istighfar, I'll take all of those steps. What is the other pathway that happens many times as well? Double down. Right, so double down in what way? Right, I can say like, oh no, I was right. Right, I was right, I didn't do anything wrong. Also a possibility. Another possibility is what? So that's one manifestation of arrogance. What is another manifestation of arrogance? Not ignorance per se. Right, you start punishing yourself. Right. Oh, woe is me. I'm so bad. How can God forgive me? I'm like, oh, I'm such an evil person. Blah blah blah. Like you fall into this pity party, and this. Why is that arrogant? Right. So sometimes you challenge Allah Subhanahu wa Taala's ability by saying that, oh, how can Allah forgive me? Because Allah can forgive whoever He wants. Like who am I to dictate who He can and who He won't forgive? What else? How else is it a manifestation of ignorance, arrogance, I should say? I'm talking about if I make a mistake, if I lied, for example. Nobody knew that I lied except me. And now I'm like, oh, I'm so bad. I'm a liar. How's Allah going to forgive me? And then I just like, I don't leave my bed, and I just stay sad. Self-pity? I'm sorry? Self-pityness? No, I'm saying, so this pity, like, why is that a problem? How come? The OCD, like, issues, thinking too much about. Oh, overthinking, sure. Right, so the overthinking, what does that lead to? Right, you're falling into the trap of shaitan. In what way? You're absolutely right, but how? By making you feel like Allah won't forgive you, you're a bad person, like okay, so it causes me to think ill of Allah. One, that's true. What else? Pulls you away from practicing. Right, okay, it causes paralysis in my actions, right? I stop actually doing deeds. What else? I've made myself more important than what? Than the action itself, right? Because I might not have harmed someone else, right? So sometimes there are victimless crimes, but they are sins in and of themselves. So, for example, somebody who looks at something they shouldn't be looking at, right? There's no victim there, but what is something that was done wrong? Absolutely, 100%. Like there's no forgiveness from an individual that needs to happen in those situations. But the moment that I make myself bigger than the repentance and bigger than the action at hand, I have fallen into arrogance, right? I've fallen into that pride. I've fallen into that self-pity. I've fallen into that self-beratement. And this is something that we find with ourselves time and time again. I make the emotion more important than the event. So, question, how do you suspect some, so on one end there's that, on the other end is just like not really caring about what you committed or the consequences of that. Sure. Where do you draw that line? So the moment it becomes paralyzing, I've fallen into self-pity. Yes? How do I get out of that? It's tough. Like, so if I'm in a hole, right, which is essentially what self-pity is, if I'm in a hole, what do I do? How do I get out of the hole? Okay, it's tough, right? Like, I can't really see. Recognize that you're weak. Okay, sure, what do I do then? I recognize that I'm weak. I was like, okay. You seek support. That's it. Simple as that, right? Like you call a friend and be like, hey, listen, I need you to come through. Like why? I don't know. I'm going through something and I can't really figure it out and I need help figuring this out. Right? That's honestly the best way. And the reason I say that is if I'm in a mental slump, I cannot use mental power to overcome that. Does that make sense? Why? Because my battery is just not charged enough for me to actually do anything. Have you ever guys tried using your phone? Like when your phone totally dies and like you plug it in, you try using it right away, what happens? Right? It just cycles, right? Like it'll start and then it'll shut down again. It'll start, it'll shut down. That's just like our minds. In that moment, it's a very similar situation. And many of us won't have the patience to wait for the phone to like, okay, hey, let me wait 5 minutes for, no. It's like, no, I need it to work right now. I have to make the phone call right now. So it's a very similar situation that we have to ask for help. The indifference, why does that become a problem? And how do I know I've fallen into that? How do I know I've fallen into indifference? You don't care. Okay, for sure, I don't care. Here, or let me put it this way. What's the commonality between these two situations? The commonality between self-pity and indifference. What am I not doing? Focusing on the action. Right, I'm not focusing on the action. And what is the main thing I'm not doing? I'm not reflecting, sure. Am I doing any tawbah? No? Right? So this is a commonality between the two. Like if I'm indifferent, like I'm not making any tawbah. And if I've fallen into self-pity, I don't think I'm worthy of tawbah. But both of these actions are the same. And we had talked about this before when we were talking about riyat. Like when it came to showing off deeds, that riyat can manifest in two ways. Riyat can be, I can do the action and I do it for the wrong intention and my reward is wiped away. Or I fear falling into riyat so much that I don't do the action at all. Do I get the reward there? No. It's like, so both of these lead to the same thing. One leads to the nullification of reward, one leads to like not even trying to acquire it. It's a very similar situation here. What are some of the reasons that we can fall into indifference? Right, so ignorance can be there. Can ignorance be cured? Yeah, all right. So ignorance is actually a very easy cure. What's the cure? Right, just learn. Right, I just go and learn. And the easiest way for that, hey, is this okay? Right, you're just going and asking and be like, hey, listen, I do this. Is this okay? I had a young man come up to me and he had asked me. He's like, Sheikh, you know, like about like these betting sites? And I was like, yeah, man. Like, unfortunately, it's so prevalent in the sports world. He's like, yeah, I bet at the games. And I was like, what? He's like, I actually am because there's like a 3-second gap or something between the televised and this. He's like, I'm actually able to call the plays and like I've won like $15,000. He's like, isn't it good that I'm taking money from them? I was like, no. I was like, no, that's not good at all. I was like, bro, you're not Robin Hood out here. Like, yeah, it's like, and he was like, yeah, but there's no betting, and I know exactly what's going to happen because the play is actually happening out in front of me. I was like, that doesn't make it any better. I was like, what's wrong is wrong. And I said, you know what's amazing? He's like, what? I was like, that $15,000 that you got, it was actually written for you. All you had to do was get it in a halal way. But you decided to take the shortcut and try to earn it in a way that like is at the least very dubious. At the least. But knowledge is it's very simple. Just ask. Like, is this okay or is it not? Initially, when he was asking the question, I actually thought he was receiving visions about something happening on the field. It took me a minute to process that. Oh wait, there's a gap between the live game and and when it's televised. Yeah. So, what leads to indifference? It's actually not very. In some cases, it's not very different from self-pity. How is that? If I feel I'm drowning in haram, what happens? Sometimes.
You can perhaps think that,
It's like, khalas, man, it's past the point. Like, I've passed the point of forgiveness, right? I've passed the point of forgiveness. Like, you know what? I'm destined for hell. And then what do? You just stop caring. I don't know. Sometimes that can be from a lack of knowledge too. When I first started practicing, it was like everything was haram, like everything. It's like, oh, you can't go to I can't go to places where there are women. Like, I can't watch TV. Like, I can't movies. Like, any type of entertainment was impermissible. And eventually, what happens? You burn out. It becomes overwhelming, and it gets to a point where you feel so strangled by religion. You're like, well, everything is haram anyway. And why is that due to ignorance? Well, a nihilist being that can definitely be a part of it, but the reality is like, okay, if I'm practicing religion in a way where I'm feeling strangled, what does that mean? That I'm not practicing it the right way. And if I'm putting all of these conditions, it's like, okay, well, these aren't actually divine conditions. These are what? These are self-imposed conditions that I've placed and put on myself. Right? And that is ignorant, right? That is ignorant. Here, let me put it this way. Living in this world, should we feel some type of restriction? 100%. Should I feel strangled? Why? Why shouldn't I feel strangled? It's like, yeah, religion is hard. The Prophet ﷺ said that there will come a people at the end of the times, they're holding on to their religion like hot coals. Tuba lil ghuraba, glad tidings to the strangers. Huh?
it's also a matter of perspective. It may be difficult at times to hold on.
100%.
But does that negate your knowledge?
So I'm saying it's difficult, right? That's the importance here. That it's difficult, but it's still what? It's still attainable and still doable, right? If it's reaching a point where I'm drowning, then I'm doing something wrong, right? Like I'm swimming in the wrong pool, right? There's definitely something off. And what do I need to do? I need to learn. Be like, okay, hey, listen, this, and this, and I remember I had this young woman. She had actually said to me one time, she was like, "You're making things too easy." And I responded, I said, well, that's interesting. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, yassiru wa la tu'assiru. He said, make things easy, don't make things difficult. And he said, bashiru wa la tunaffiru. Give glad tidings, don't always give warnings. Because these are the things that actually and genuinely motivate us. Right? These are the things that push us. And the more we start like strangling ourselves, the more impossible it actually becomes to practice religion. And not just that, not only, even if I maintain practicing, I start saying things like, man, I hope I just get into Jannah. Instead of saying, like the Prophet ﷺ told us, إِذَا سَأَلْتَ فَسَلِ الْفِرْدَوْسِ. It's like, when you ask for paradise, ask for Firdaus. Because it is the highest and most central part of paradise. Like, aim high. Like, if I'm feeling like I'm drowning, like I'm doing something wrong. I really am. And it could mean that I need to change where I live. It could mean that I need to change my friendships. It could mean that I need to change my social circle. It could mean that I need to distance myself from XYZ. Right? It could mean all of those things. But it could also mean that I'm fundamentally misunderstanding the religion. Fundamentally. And that's okay. How many of us have experienced major paradigm shifts in our understanding of Islam? Like all of us. Yes or no? Well, I hope anyway. It's like, we wake up and we hear something or somebody said something, it's like, oh my God, I've been doing this wrong the whole time. And it should be a very humbling moment, right? For some people, it's very destructive, right? For some people, it's like, oh my God, the whole religion is wrong. I've been thinking this the whole time and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, it actually wasn't that deep at all. Like you're making this much bigger deal than it really needs to be. But it's important to have those, I would say futuhat, it's important to have those revelations and those shifts time and time again because it brings humility, right? It makes us humble. And we have to learn to be humble. So over here, there are a couple of examples that Imam Ghazali brings of a person just boasting about their family, boasting about where they're from, boasting about their lineage and their parentage. And a lot of these times, and like such statements, when do they come out? Right, they usually come out when tensions are high. Meaning that I will say what I actually and truly believe when emotions are high. That the time that I should especially be aware of my arrogance is when emotions are high. If in my day-to-day it's like, oh, I'm not arrogant, I treat people equally, everybody's great, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like the moment you get into an argument, it's like, who do you think you are? Do you know who I am? Right? Immediately it comes out. Immediately it comes out. Right? And that's the dangerous thing. Like, and that's how dangerous kibr is, right? That's how dangerous pride is that sometimes we're not aware of it until we become very emotionally charged, until we become like genuinely upset. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. So over here, the Prophet ﷺ, he's putting perspective around how we should speak about our families, how we should speak about our lineage, how we should speak about our forefathers. Can I be proud of my family? Can I be proud of my lineage? Like, how do I show that and how do I express that? Right. Actions? Okay. Well, I can honor them, but like, what are some ways of honoring them? Giving sadaqah on their behalf, 100%. I'm sorry? Visiting their friends, right? This is something that's really important. It's like, why are you visiting so-and-so? Oh, well, actually, it was my father's really close friend. And I thought it important to visit. What else? Mm-hmm. Sure. Not just boasting. Okay. It's like, I really appreciate, the one thing I really appreciate about my father is like he built a number of wells, for example. Right? Like, these are things that it's okay, it's completely fine to be proud of those things. It's like, and I hope to carry on that legacy. I think that's something else that's really important. If there's something that was important to my parents or to my grandparents, and I wanted to carry on that legacy, are there not different ways to contribute to that? Okay, so for example, if you had a great-grandfather that built a hospital, what can I do? Sure. That's definitely a very reasonable understanding. So what contributions can I make today? Or what is it that I can do today? Do I still want the hospital to be successful? Or I'm going to be like, I can't afford that. Or I can donate. And like, even if I give like a $5 donation, does it hurt? No. And why am I doing it is because I want to honor my grandfather's legacy. Right? This is something that was really important to him. And I want it to be something that's really important to me. And even Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, you know who he made dua for? He didn't make dua just for himself and his sons. He's like, my progeny. He's like, I want my kids, my grandkids, my great-great-grandkids. Like, I want them all to be successful. I want them all to be pious. I want them all to be righteous. Like, it's learning how to be thankful for those that will come ahead of us, right? And those that we've left behind. And not just that, like when we do this, it actually helps put us in a little bit of context too, right? That we didn't just appear out of a vacuum. There are actually people who preceded us. Right? There are people who will be after us as well. Right? And kind of understanding like, man, the amount of time that I'm here, it actually puts, it just makes us that less significant, right? That much more, that much, or I would say that much lesser significant. When we understand and we contextualize some of these things. And looking at the people who passed and looking at the people who are ahead of us. Beauty. So lineage, he's saying that, what are the first three that he talked about? Are the pathways that can lead to boasting and arrogance. Number one? You guys aren't reviewing your notes, bro. Knowledge. Sounds good. Second? Worship. And the third we just finished? Lineage. Now he's going to talk about beauty. What do you guys think? Accurate? Dang. So I heard something really interesting. When guys see somebody or see another man who is good looking and muscular and built, how do men generally view that man? What happens? We say, no, okay, mashallah, okay. As long as nobody's saying inshallah. Yes. Then what? Huh? So maybe we can go on with our day, but we'll usually take that person as, especially if that person is well known. Like I don't know, you guys, He-Man, you guys might be too young. You guys remember He-Man? He-Man and the Masters of Grayskull. Why did we watch He-Man? Like as little boys, what did we want? Like as role models. So when we see another man that is muscular or see one that is like, it actually is very motivating for men to be like that person. You'll have less of a jealousy issue amongst men. It'll be more motivational. With women, that's not the case. If there's a woman who is extremely attractive or beautiful and she's put in a space with other women, what happens? It's usually a lot of what's happening and what he's discussing here. Why did he mention this though? So these vices, why is it important to point them out?
I think because inherently men will place more importance on the beauty of women, and so they know that. Women don't necessarily place the same amount of importance on men.
Yeah, toward men. Okay, 100%. Even the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, hadith sahih, he said that, beware of women. He said, I have not seen a man of sound intellect go crazy except behind a woman. The opposite is not true, right? Not to say it doesn't happen, right? Like I don't want to dismiss it completely, but so there was a really famous comedian, and he made a joke. He said, you can talk to a woman, and she can be the top of her career, happily married, have children, And he's like, hey, listen, if you had an opportunity with an extremely handsome man, with like Tom Cruise or like Brad Pitt or whatever, would you leave your husband? And he's like, women be like, they'd think about it and they'd be like, no, you know, I'm very stable, I'm very happy. He said, now what if the opposite was for men? And you went up to him and you're like, hey, listen, would you be willing to give all this up for that girl that's passed out behind the dumpster over there? And it's really interesting that he brought those two examples. For the woman, he brought the example of the pinnacle of men, right? Like in terms of actual beauty and how they look. And he said for men, that same level of attraction is very different. Like how the men and women fundamentally view each other is very different. How they gauge each other is very different. How they interact with each other is very different. I was just talking to my wife about this like last night. I was like, you know, one thing that I noticed is that if a group of women meet, you can't immediately tell who are friends and who are not friends. I said, but with a group of men, you can almost immediately tell. With men, if that person is their friend, what will they do? They'll usually dab them and hug them. And if that person is not their friend, what are they going to do? They're just going to shake their hand. It's very different. Like it's just really interesting to see like the dynamics of how people interact and how they engage with one another. And it should go to tell us the fundamental differences between genders and how we need to recognize them. Because each gender has their strength and each gender has their weakness. Like, how do we deal with those weaknesses? How do we overcome them? How do we prevent these weaknesses from developing a meaningful relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How do we overcome these weaknesses so we develop a meaningful relationship with each other? Right? These are things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed these obstacles in our hearts. How do we overcome them? How do we deal with them? Right, surrounding yourself with good company is a major part. Like you'll see that coming through all of these different flaws. Right? It's a constant that's there. Having good company. What else? Reflection. Like reflection is so fundamentally important. So these ideas of tazkiyah, these ideas of mujahada, these ideas of like reflection, they're so important. They're so important because if I'm not constantly checking myself, what happens? Right, I can fall into any of these. Because the shaitan, does he care which path you take? No, he doesn't care. All he cares about is getting you onto one of those paths. Or sometimes multiple. And why is he doing it? He's acting out of spite. How many of you have dealt with someone who's acting out of spite? You know someone? No? Okay. And if you've dealt with somebody who's acting out of spite, are they thinking about a lot of things, or are they very much focused? Right? They're extremely focused. And the same thing with the shaitan. He's very hyper-focused. He's like, oh, I'm going to hell? Okay, well, I'm going to bring as many of y'all with me as I can.
That was the promise he made to us.
And that's the promise he made to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's like, I'm going to misguide as many of them as I can. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what did he do? He said, he gave him permission. He said, except those who I've guided. So, beauty, while many times we view it as a blessing, it can also be a curse if I don't use it in the proper way. Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, a woman entered upon the Prophet ﷺ and I gestured with my hand like this, meaning that she was short, and the Prophet ﷺ said, you have backbitten her. And what did Aisha radiallahu anha do in this situation? She essentially ridiculed her. Right? So she was making fun of her. She was like, you know what I mean? It's like, and that's not, and the Prophet immediately, he's like, hey, listen, that's not appropriate. Like, you shouldn't do that. And this relationship is one that is really important, right? Between the Prophet ﷺ and his wife. Because this shows us that just because it's a husband and wife relationship, it doesn't mean that I cannot what? I can't check, like, we should be able to check each other. The way that we do it, it might not manifest in the same, right? But it has to be respectful. It has to be respectful. And here he is, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like he didn't respond to her, be like, oh, well, you're shorter than she is, right? Like that's not the way that you do that. right? Because I'm feeding into that negative narrative. He's actually calling it what it is. He's like, why are you backbiting her? Like that's not appropriate. And sometimes we have to do that, right? It's really important. I was having this conversation with this older gentleman, and he was talking about like his interaction with his wife and this and that. And I said, do you argue with your wife? And he's like, no. I was like, that's weird. No, but that's a problem. Why is it a problem? Why should a husband and wife argue? It makes things interesting. You're definitely not married. I'm sorry.
Sharing of ideas, conversation.
Because it's a way for us to actually learn how to engage and interact when emotions are high. And remember, we talked about when is it that pride and arrogance and all of these evil traits actually show? It shows when emotions are high, and those are the times I'm expected to actually control myself. And argumentation is like, it's a very charged term. I like presenting it conceptually as meaningful confrontation. Does that make sense? Right? Like what meaningful confrontation is that? Okay, hey, I didn't appreciate that you said this. I didn't appreciate that you did that. And there are a few ways, right, that can go. And many times what happens because of the misunderstanding of roles, that when a husband and wife fight, who almost always loses? The husband, right? Well, the kids can lose if it leads to a fight, right? But if we're saying there's argumentation and the man loses every time, statistically, does that even make sense? I want you guys to think about that. Yes. Some women, but I'm saying it's not, because over here we're not talking about winning and losing a game. We're not talking about winning and losing a relationship. We're talking about the specific subject at hand. And I'm saying that does it make sense that you have one party that is dominating the conversation 80-90% of the time? That's not a healthy relationship. And why do we know that? Because in every relationship there's what? There's balance and there's give and take. And I believe that there's a fundamental skew in how even that relationship is supposed to look. How many of you have heard the phrase, happy wife, happy life? Right? I'm sure we've all heard that phrase, right? Do I own my wife's happiness? Does that even make sense? How can I own somebody else? Like, do I have somebody else's emotional remote? Is that even fair? Let's say I do. Is it even fair? Is that a fair power to give somebody else? Press of a button, they can make me cry. Press of a button, they can make me angry. Press of a button, they can make me happy. That's too much power. That's way too much power. It's not even appropriate at all. Like, who owns my wife's happiness? She does. Who owns my happiness? I do. Like, what is my job as a husband? What is my job as a husband? To respect and to honor. And what is her job as a wife? To respect and to honor. Happiness, sadness, anger. Nobody should have my emotional remote. Absolutely not. And nor should I own anybody else's emotional remote. Like, we're expected to control our own emotions. And the Prophet specifically has said to men, right, when he's addressing men, Awsini ya Rasulullah, advise me ya Rasulullah. The Prophet said what? He said, La taghdab. Right? This is not the same advice that he's giving to women. Right? This is advice he's giving to men. He's like, La taghdab. He said, don't get angry. He's like, okay, anything else ya Rasulullah? The Prophet says what? He said, don't get angry. He's like, anything else ya Rasulullah? What do you say? Don't get angry. Right? It's a problem. Right? This is a fundamental problem in men. Like, they cannot control their anger. Like, so what should I do as a man? I should work and take steps to what? To manage and channel my anger in a meaningful, healthy way. It doesn't mean get angry, huh? I'm sorry? Oh, solutions? Like, no? So there are different ways. How can I channel my anger? If I'm angry, what do I do? So the thing is, stepping away, going to the gym, going for a jog, right? Like breathing exercises, those are all distractions. Did I actually solve the reason why I'm angry? I think those are good for what? They're good for to bring down my emotional state. Does that, right? Like, so where I can become functional. It's like, okay, hey, listen, I need to step away from the situation. If I'm engaging with my wife and I'm starting to get angry, what is the first thing I should do? I can't do any of these things because remember I said my job is to what? Respect and honor her. If I just get up and I walk away, she's like, I can't believe you didn't do this. I'm just like, yeah. Is that a healthy engagement? No. Then what do I do? Listen. I don't have the capacity. That's it. All I have to do is listen, I hear you're upset. I'm not in a space where I can actually process this right now. I need 10 minutes. That's it. I need an hour. Always put a time. Always. Right? This is my personal advice. Never say later, never say tomorrow. Always put a time. Always. And you can be like, okay, fine, next week at 7 p.m. No. Then you can negotiate. Remember, everything's up for negotiation. Like, no, that's too long. I can't wait that long. It's like, okay, 3 days. So all of these, and then what can I do? I step away for 10 minutes. I go for my jog. I'm still angry. Now what?
I think once you've removed yourself from the situation respectfully,
Yeah.
it gives you an opportunity to then think on it.
Good. All right. I've thought about it. I'm still upset. What do I do? Okay, now I can communicate. This is what made me angry and this is what made me upset. And I think it's also important to understand emotions will only grow when we don't embrace them, right? So like, and inshallah we'll have a workshop on grief soon, but like grief, anger, happiness, right? These are all emotions. Many times, what are we trying to do? We're trying to push them and keep them at bay. Why? We haven't learned to process them. But if we allow anger to kind of wash over ourselves, if we allow grief to wash over ourselves, if we allow, do you guys know people who don't allow themselves to be happy? Right? They don't know how to take compliments. They don't, right? Like there are people who actually will prevent themselves from being happy. And a lot of times, like, and you'll ask them, like, yo, I don't deserve to be happy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, all of these lead to, it's just, a lot of it is ego, and a lot of it is like just giving ourselves so much self-importance and so much self-pity, right? And self-importance and self-pity, these things actually are hand in hand. It's like, oh, woe is me, I'm so bad, I'm this and that, blah, blah, oh, I don't deserve this, I don't deserve that. Like, who are you to determine what you deserve and what you don't deserve? The reality is we don't deserve anything, right? Like, that's the reality. Like, I don't deserve to walk, I don't deserve to see, I don't deserve to have children, I don't deserve any of these things, but it's out of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's infinite mercy that I even have those. But now it's like, okay, tayyib, nah. And if the happiness is there, that means Allah has given permission for what? For me to be happy. And if the grief is there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me permission to grieve. Now, are there certain ways that I can grieve? Are there certain ways that I can be happy? Are there certain ways that I can express anger? 100%. Right? If I'm angry at someone, can I just, like, the closest person to them, can I just punch them in the face? No. Or if I'm happy, can I just go up to a woman and hug her? Like, there are things in the Sharia that are not permissible. Like, I can't do that. But I can express it. And many times, just saying I'm angry, or just saying I'm upset, it's actually very empowering. Because emotions, it's a lot like, like feelings that bubble up. And you guys know, like, those pressure release valves, right? Like if you ever pressure cook anything, it's like, sometimes you just have to let the pressure off little by little. And then when it gets to a point where you have a little bit of emotional stability, what do? Right? Like you kind of let it all out. But it's important, right? Like, these things are very important so that we learn how to gauge and how to deal with our emotions and how to manage them, how to present them, how to engage with them. And emotions are a very important part of our being. It only becomes a problem when we allow those emotions to dictate what we're supposed to do. Like if my anger is telling me what to do, that's a problem. If my lust is telling me what to do, that's a problem. Right? If my happiness is telling me what to do, even some of these are positive emotions. They can be problematic because they can lead us to do things that we're not supposed to be doing. Most, if not all, of the decisions we make, they should be very logical. Like emotions are good, right? They're there because it helps give us a gauge on how to interact and deal with the world around us. But I'm not supposed to act on those gauges. Like I can't. It's not going to lead to anything healthy. What do? I look at all of those gauges, and then based off that, I can make a sound decision. And it's interesting here, Imam Ghazali, he kind of frames this idea of beauty and backbiting in a very comparative way. And we had talked about this before, that one of the surest signs of arrogance is the moment that we put people on levels, right? Either putting myself on a pedestal or putting people at a lower level, right? Like either of these. In the moment that I create that, I have fallen into arrogance. And sometimes this arrogance, it can be out of competition. Well, why do we belittle others? Why do we put others down? We feel better about ourselves. Because each and every one of us, like we want to be better, right? Like all of us, we want to be better. What is the hard way of becoming better? Right? I have to actually prove it. I have to work. Right? Like if I'm not happy with my figure, I have to go work out. How quickly will I see the results?
4 to 6 weeks.
Right. MashaAllah. 4 to 6 weeks, right? And if I work on my anger, right? How many of you heard of like multi-step anger management programs? Right? Some of them are 6 weeks, some of them 10 weeks, some of them 12 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, right? Like all of these different means and ways are pathways to growth. But it takes time. A quick way of doing that is actually putting other people down. Right? That's very quick, and it requires very little effort. And we really have to look into our hearts that if I feel better about putting somebody else down, that's very indicative of a problem in my own heart.
It's a band-aid on the bullet.
I'm sorry?
It's a band-aid on the bullet because you're taking a shortcut to make yourself feel okay in a certain position.
Yeah, but it just feels good in the moment, right? It's like, and it's not, like you said, it's not really doing anything, right? You're not actually providing any benefit or any value. Real change requires work. Real change requires effort, and this is not the way to that. Inshallah, next week we're off, but when we come back, we'll discuss the arrogance that's due to wealth, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from all the different forms of arrogance. Inshallah, you guys enjoy your vacation. I look forward to seeing you all when we come back. Jazakumullah khair. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu ala khair khalqin nabiyina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi. Next week is Thanksgiving.